Hi. Have you ever wondered why someone else did something? Or, better yet, what caused you yourself to do something? Or just why a relationship between you and your partner or you and your friend just didn't work out? That could be because of the FIRO theory. FIRO is an acronym for Fundamental Interpersonal Relations Orientation. So, from Rewrite Leadership, I learned that the FIRO theory was developed by Dr. Will Schutz in 1958. This theory was just based on dynamic psychology of growth and development. It was just kind of used to understand the characteristic orientation of an individual in each dimension. So, in the human element, we learned that there were three different dimensions there's behavior, feelings, and self concept. So, behavior is just going to be like there's three words for each of them. Behaviors is inclusion, control, and openness. Feelings was significance, competence, and likability. Um, and the self concept one was just kind of like all about yourself, obviously. So it was self significance, self determination, and self awareness. So from the Sweden, we learned that this is kind of just like a study of, or a theory of, why certain people work well with one another and just why we're all driven by the need to feel like accepted and loved and valued and important and included or controlled or like in control, not controlled. And we need to make sure like we have that likability and that significance going on. It's that underlying like desire. Like every human needs that feeling. So that's kind of what the theory is about. It's also kind of just like so you have your feelings and those kind of determine your behavior. If you act on those feelings, that's your behavior. Then your behavior, your actions, they turn into a result. So it's like the feelings to an action to a result. That's kind of the theory, broken down into smaller pieces for everyone. So for my theory, I obviously chose the FIRO theory. And for my movie, I chose Love Actually. It's a fan favorite, super good, loved watching it. And so for my first example with that movie was Billy Mack. He's in the very beginning of the movie. It's like the starting scene. He is just feeling very washed out. He's feeling kind of old. He was an older pop star who was very valued back then, but now he's just kind of like old news. Everybody, like the pop bands are kind of becoming famous. And so he decided to take an action on those feelings. He was just feeling discluded, which was one of our behavior feelings. Um, and so he decided to take action on that. He decided to try to become the number one pop um, song for Christmas. Um, so that was his action, and the result was he did succeed in the end. He did become more famous and got a lot of attention, but it was a very like rocky road for him. Obviously, he kind of had a little bit of a hard time. It was really funny. It was just a comedy. It was funny, but yes, that was a good example of how he felt discluded, a little bit unattached from like what was hip and new today, and so he tried a bunch of new things to kind of like become what he should have been, I guess you could say, and his results were he got the attention that he wanted. Um, my next example was Harry and Karen. They're the married couple in the movie. So Harry's secretary started to kind of pay attention to him a little extra and started to give him gifts and was flirting. But Harry was faithfully, like in a faithful relationship with his wife. They had two great kids. But it was that feeling that someone else wanted him and someone else had that desire. And so that was hard for him to control because it was like he was feeling very significant and he was feeling that likability that I mentioned earlier from this girl. Um, and so he did act on those feelings. He did go out and try to buy her a necklace and kind of was treating her like he should have been treating his wife. But that did not, the results from that one were not very good. His wife was less than thrilled, obviously, very upsetted, heartbroken, honestly. Um, and Harry did end up in the end of the movie realizing that those feelings he had for Mia, his secretary, who he was not married to, were just based off of that feeling that he wanted to feel special, not that he actually had those feelings for her, which is a really hard thing to tell apart. But it was a good example of the FIRO theory and kind of how he felt that self significance in him, like his self concept, his self significance. He felt very significant because he was wanted by someone. Um, my next example is Sam, who had a huge crush on Joanna. This is my personal favorite. He is so cute. His mother had just died, and he was just feeling kind of down in the dumps, obviously very depressed. But he kind of got a little crush on a girl named Joanna, and he had been trying to join the band to impress her, trying to get her attention in multiple different ways. Um, and that was his behavior. He was just acting on those feelings. And it was his self-concept was he was very determined. He was very self-determined to get this girl's attention and to make her like him. So finally he went to his stepfather for advice, and they went back and forth on a couple of different ideas. And in the end of the movie, it was super cute. He went, chased her down to the airport, got her attention, kind of explained his feelings a little bit, and he got a kiss on the cheek, which is super cute at the end. So that was a good example of how he felt like he was so self-determined to get that feeling of that love, and that was his feelings to an action to a result. My last example is Colin. I think this is a very good example of the FIRO theory and how desperate people are to feel that attachment and that closeness with another person. Colin was not receiving the attention he had wanted where he was living, and so he decided to give everything up for a while and fly to America, where he thought girls would find his accent cuter and he would get more attention from girls. This is just a huge, very dramatic example of what someone would do just to feel that closeness. So I guess you could say his self-concept was very self-determined. He was obviously so determined to get that girl and to get that closeness. Also, I guess you could say he was pretty self-aware of his priorities, whether they were the right priorities or if they were in line. That was his priority, and he acted on it. So, he did what he was aiming to do, and he did succeed. Yes, he had girls all over him. It was pretty comical. And he ended up bringing back one of the girls with him to where he lived, and he brought one back for his friend. It was pretty funny. But that was just a great example of how his feelings were so strong that it took over his action, and that's what he acted on, which is a really good example of your feelings to your actions to a result. So just a quick rundown of what we just went over. The FIRO theory was built with 3 dimensions. There was the behaviors, feelings, and self-concept. And I went over the self-concept before, but it's really just how all those emotions correspond with yourself. So that was the movie, was Love Actually. I feel like it corresponded very well. It was a very accurate description with multiple examples of how this FIRO theory broke down and how it took place in a lot of different ages and places of lives and relationships. I just feel that it was a very good example. I had a lot of fun doing it and watching the movie and learning about this theory. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and comment below. I'll post it on YouTube, and I'd love to answer and give a better understanding if someone needs help understanding. Thank you.